You ever have one of those days where you just know the universe is testing you? Well, picture this. A 13-year-old girl standing at gate 23 of Reagan National Airport, staring at a trash can like it. Just ate her whole future. Because it kinda did. Her name's Zuri James, and a gate agent. Let's call her Emily, the kind with a tight ponytail and colder eyes. Just tossed Zuri's passport in with the empty coffee cups. Smirk on her face, too, like she just scored the game-winning point. Oops. Looks like you won't be flying anywhere today. Yeah, that happened. Now, most kids would panic, maybe cry, maybe freeze. But not Zuri. She pulls out her phone, hands a little shaky, but her voice? Steady as a judge. She records herself, states her name, date, and place, and then, with a calm that would make a grown lawyer jealous, she looks Emily right in the eyes and says, "What you just did violates Title VI of the Civil Rights Act of 1964. That's when the room goes dead silent. Except for a few gasps and the low hum of other passengers flipping on their cameras. Within minutes, security's on the way. Within hours, this will be all over the news. But how we get to this point, with a teenager holding court at a gate? Let me back up a sec, because Zuri, she's not your average middle schooler. She grew up in D.C., in a house where justice wasn't just something you talked about. It was dinner table conversation. Her dad's a big-time civil rights attorney with the ACLU. Her mom's a school principal, and their walls are covered in photos. Zuri with President Obama, Zuri at rallies, Zuri holding Know Your Rights signs. It's no wonder that, when she packs for a solo trip to LA, she puts her debate notes and a folder of passenger rights next to her clothes. That morning, her dad, Marcus, quizzes her about Title VI, just like he's done a dozen times before. She nails every answer. What if someone violates your rights? He asks. Document everything, stay calm, cite the law, and call you, she says, grinning. Her mom, Grace, looks proud but anxious. Letting your kid fly solo is one thing. Letting your prepared kid fly solo is another. At the airport, things start smooth. TSA even compliments Zuri's hoodie. But at gate 23, she spots something off with Emily. This agent treats white passengers with friendly small talk. But when it's families of color, she's all business, checking documents twice, asking weird questions. Zuri watches her challenge a Latino mom. Are these children really yours? Zuri feels her stomach knot. She's seen this before, in her dad's cases, in her own research. It's profiling, plain and simple. When it's Zuri's turn, she's polite, hands over her boarding pass and passport, stands tall. But Emily eyes her passport like it's radioactive. She asks Zuri where her parents are, how she could possibly afford a plane ticket at 13. Zuri stays cool, explains her parents bought the ticket, points out the matching info. Emily just gets colder, tossing out accusations. Maybe it's not her passport, maybe it's stolen. Zuri calmly points out all the facts, never raising her voice, never letting her composure crack. Then, Emily crosses a line. She says the passport looks fake and, after a back-and-forth worthy of a courtroom, decides to confiscate it. Zuri, armed with more legal knowledge than most adults, tells her, only federal officers or a judge can confiscate a passport, not a gate agent. That's when Emily, flustered and angry, holds up the passport and lets it fall, slow and deliberate, right into the trash. She looks Zuri dead in the eye. Looks like you're not flying today. Here's where most people would lose it. Zuri. She takes 3 breaths, grabs her phone, and starts documenting, explaining, on video, exactly what happened, naming names, stating laws. When Emily demands she turn off her phone, Zuri cites her First Amendment rights and case law, rattling off Glick versus Kiff like she's on the Supreme Court. The crowd starts pulling out their own phones. People are watching, and some are filming from across the waiting area. An elderly white woman, a black businessman, the Latino family from before, all witnesses now. A young Asian American gate agent named James Park, who's been watching nervously, steps in and asks what's going on. Emily tries to paint Zuri as disruptive, but Zuri keeps it factual, asks James to retrieve her passport from the trash. James does just that, finds it right on top. Checks it, it's legit. The crowd's watching, tension thick as soup. Then people start speaking up. The woman from before says she saw everything. The businessman chimes in, says this is clear. Discrimination. The Latino mom admits she was profiled too. Suddenly, it's not just Zuri's fight, it's everyone's. Zuri calls her dad. Marcus picks up right away, voice fierce and proud. She tells him everything, puts him on speaker so he can talk to the whole gate area. He says he's calling the airport director and the ACLU, tells her not to move, not to let anyone intimidate her. That he'll be there in 20 minutes. The name, Marcus James, spreads through the staff like wildfire. Emily goes pale. Turns out, when you work in DC, you know that name. Security shows up, and Emily, suddenly the victim, turns on the waterworks, saying Zuri harassed her. Zuri stays calm, repeats her side, shows the video. Officer Williams, who recognizes Marcus' name, gives Emily a look that says, I'm not buying it. He checks the passport, talks to witnesses, reviews phone videos. It's clear who's telling the truth. Then the airport director arrives, Patricia Morrison. All authority and no patience for nonsense. She reviews the footage, listens to Zuri, and when she hears enough, she suspends Emily on the spot. Zuri files a formal complaint, requests complaint. Records for that agent. She's not just seeking justice for herself, but for everyone. Morrison promises an investigation, takes Zuri's research and recommendations seriously. When Marcus arrives, he hugs Zuri tight. For a moment, she's just a kid who needs her dad. But then he gets to work, demanding not just accountability, but systemic change. Zuri, always prepared, hands over a folder, policy proposals, data, real solutions for anti-discrimination training, oversight, public complaint processes. Morrison promises to take it to the top. Before boarding, Zuri addresses the crowd. She thanks the witnesses, tells everyone that silence enables injustice, but speaking up creates real change. By now, her video is going viral. Millions watching, thousands commenting. Stories of discrimination pouring in. She boards her rebooked flight in first class, sitting beside her dad, wondering if it'll matter, if anything will change. He tells her it will, but not all at once. Change happens in moments like this, when someone stands up and refuses to be silent. And it did matter. The airline launched a real investigation, fired Emily, adopted Zuri's recommendations, and started training sessions nationwide. Other victims came forward. Zuri's story spread to schools, to Congress, even to new laws. Months later, Zuri stands in front of a classroom, teaching other kids how to know their rights, stay calm, and speak up. She tells them change starts with one voice, but grows with many. If a 13-year-old at an airport can change a national policy, she says, imagine what all of you can do. So let me ask you, if you saw something like that, would you speak up? Would you document it, be a witness for justice? Or look away? Drop your thoughts below. Your story could be the one that inspires the next Zuri. Because knowing your rights, and using them, really can change everything. 2 hours after the storm at Gate 23, I'm settling into a first-class seat I never expected to see, my dad beside me, both of us silent as the plane pushes back from the gate. The flight attendants know who I am. 1. A tall black woman named Ashley pauses beside my seat before takeoff and squeezes my shoulder. She whispers, "You did something big today, sweetheart. Not just for yourself, for all of us." I smile. But honestly, I'm exhausted, my head buzzing with everything that just happened. My dad squeezes my hand. For the first time since this all began, I let myself feel the weight of it. Not just fear or anger, but pride and, yeah, a little hope too. Above the clouds, I finally exhale. My phone keeps vibrating, messages from classmates, debate friends, people I've never met. Screenshots of my video. Already spreading on social media, hashtags blowing up, people sharing their own stories about airport discrimination. My hands are still a little shaky as I scroll. There's a message from a girl in Chicago who says, "You showed me I'm allowed to say something." Another from a mom in Atlanta. "Thank you for standing up for my son, even though you never met him." It's overwhelming, honestly. Dad leans over, grins at me, and says, "See? Sometimes all it takes is one person who refuses to be quiet." He's right. But in the back of my mind, I'm still wondering, will this actually change anything? Or will the airline just issue an apology, promise some training, and quietly hope it blows over? A few days later, I find out the answer. It doesn't blow over. The story is everywhere. National news, morning shows, my face on the screen next to the words civil rights protections for passengers. Reporters call our house. Lawyers email, activists reach out. Even my school principal calls me into her office. Not because I'm in trouble, but because she wants to say thank you. My debate coach cries when I tell the story. She says, "I knew you were brave. I just didn't realize how brave." Within a week, the airline's corporate office issues a public statement. They admit discrimination occurred. They announce the termination of Emily Thompson. And they promise to overhaul their anti-bias training using my policy proposals. That's wild enough. But what really gets me is the flood of new complaints that start coming in. Passengers from all over the country reach out to share their own experiences, not just with Thompson, but with other agents, other airports, other flights. My dad works with the ACLU to connect people with legal help. And soon, it's not just one case, it's a whole movement. Then comes the email from the John Lewis Center for Civil Rights, inviting me to speak at their youth leadership ceremony. I almost don't go. Part of me thinks I'm just a kid. What could I possibly say that matters? But Dad says, "You have a responsibility now, Zuri. You turned one moment into a platform. Don't waste it." So, I stand up in front of a room full of high schoolers, college kids, lawyers, and community leaders. My hands shake at first, but then I remember the feeling at the gate, the way my voice held steady. When I needed it to most, I tell them the whole story, every ugly detail, every brave witness, every moment I wanted to quit, but didn't. I watch faces change as I talk. I see people recognizing themselves, their families, their own stories in mine. Afterward, people line up to shake my hand, to tell me their own stories. A black mother with 2 kids hugs me and says, "You made my daughters feel seen." A white college student admits he's never thought much about racial profiling, but now wants to do more. Even one of the security officers from the airport comes, in full uniform, and thanks me for reminding us what the badge is supposed to mean. But not everything is easy. The backlash online comes, too. Trolls, angry strangers, even a few adults at my own school who say I overreacted or should have been more respectful. That stings. But every time it does, I read another message from a kid who says, "You gave me courage," or a parent who says, "My son watched your video, and now he knows his rights." And I remember, it's never about pleasing everybody. It's about standing up when it counts. A few months pass. My dad keeps pushing for real change at the airline, following up on every promise. The company rolls out new training, posts passenger rights at every gate, and establishes a third-party hotline for discrimination complaints. We get invited to a congressional hearing. Yeah, me, a 13-year-old, sitting in front of lawmakers, telling them why passengers need to know their rights and why companies have to be held accountable. I use my own story, but I bring a whole stack of other stories with me. Witness statements, video clips, data my dad helped me collect. I look those politicians in the eye and say, "You have a chance to make this better. Please don't waste it." For the first time, I feel the weight of all those voices behind me, not just mine. 1 year later, I'm invited back to Reagan National for an unveiling of the airline's new anti-discrimination protocols. It's surreal. The airport director gives a speech, reporters are everywhere, and a little girl, maybe 9 or 10, runs up and hugs me so tight I almost cry. She whispers, "I'm not scared anymore." That's when it really hits me. It started as the worst day of my life, but it turned into something I can actually be proud of. Now, whenever I travel, I keep that old laminated card from Dad in my bag, just in case. I still get nervous. I still get angry when I see people being treated unfairly. But now, people recognize me. They send me updates. Photos of new posters at their local airport, stories about how they spoke up or recorded when something felt wrong. I'm just one voice, but it's never just about one person. So if you're reading this, wondering if you should speak up, if you should document, if you should risk being the difficult one in the room, yeah, you should. Because silence never changed a thing, but one steady voice can start a ripple that turns into a wave. You know what I mean? That's how movements are born. That's how the world gets better. One ordinary person, one ordinary day, just refusing to let things slide. And if you've ever stood up for what's right, or wish you had, or wonder how to start, drop a comment, share your story. I promise, Someone out there needs to hear it. Someone out there is waiting for proof that speaking up is worth it. That's how we keep the change going. That's how we make sure no one else's passport ends up in the trash ever again.